It helps with everything, from registering a birth to setting up a business, applying for a passport, or claiming universal credit. The government is made up of many different parts, but to people who need a service, it's just one thing. They want to be able to interact with the service quickly, easily, and safely. Many parts of government already deliver services digitally, but too often people have to repeat registering and sharing information about themselves over and over again to access services from different parts of government. Sometimes they need to prove who they are in person and then again online, which is frustrating and time-consuming. It can be particularly difficult for people who don't have passports or driving licenses or have incomplete credit histories. So it's the job of digital government to join things up and make life easier for users. Our vision is to remove unnecessary complexity by developing one inclusive and accessible way for people to log in to all government services online. An easy way to prove their identity, just once, that also gives them control over who has access to their data and why. We want to remove unnecessary barriers, not essential safeguards. We want to give people confidence that their data is being used responsibly, and we want to reduce fraud by making it easier to identify and tackle suspicious activity. To do this, we're combining expertise from teams across government to co-design a solution that will be flexible enough to meet the needs of different digital services. This will end the need for each department to find their own digital identity solution and make it possible for them to securely share data and join things up for users. Because ultimately, when we're able to securely and seamlessly share trusted data between services, we can make our vision of a better, fairer, and faster access to government services a reality for everyone.
Welcome, everybody. We just wanted to start that off with a little video, and now we're going to jump in. We've got a very good crowd still coming in, So
hi everyone, I'm Douglas Howie. I'm a design lead on Verify, and I was unfortunately she's unwell. So cool. So service design.
Sorry, Nina malfunction. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, let's start that over. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to quickly just go through a couple of things up top, and then I'm going to hand it over to my boss, Lindsay Parker. But welcome to Unleash the Possible. This is our monthly government tech series where we invite our partners, whether you are a vendor, a nonprofit, or a leader in the area that's working on innovative and exciting ideas, to talk about what we're doing here at DC Government and the Chief Technology Office. So up top, I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping items. Everybody here, this is the first time we've done this, but everybody here is going to have the ability to turn on their camera so we can see your face, as well as unmute yourself to talk when we have our pauses in the presentation to have a discussion. But in the meantime, if you can do us a favor and keep yourself on mute, and then when we indicate it's time for discussion, you're definitely welcome to raise your hand and or come off mute. When you do speak, introduce yourself. You probably don't know a lot of people in this room. We've got almost 80 people. Say your name and your affiliation, but please do not use this as a time for a marketing pitch. And as always, this meeting is being recorded, and we will post it on our Unleash the Possible event page as soon as it's made ready. So other ways that you can communicate while you're in the meeting, if you look at your bottom right corner of your WebEx, you'll see participants and then chat. So you can click the chat, and then you'll be able to either select everyone so that we can all see it, or you can select a person from the drop-down. Don't be shy. Definitely network if somebody catches your eye, but always be nice and courteous. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay Parker, our Chief Technology Officer.
Thanks so much, Nina, and thanks for getting us here. It looks great. So I'm excited about the conversation that we'll have over the next few minutes. So you just saw a video, if you were able to join us on time, from our friends across the pond. Really, I think I got into government to bring about what the UK digital services team had, contemplated, I guess, almost 15 years ago, and has steadily made some massive progress on. I think it's, that's a team that is doing very neat things to really think about changing the way that we govern, changing the way that we provide government services. And I think if there has been nothing else in my kind of career over the last few years that has made the moment more, this is the moment to make this happen in the US. I think COVID only underscored the need to change the way that we govern so that we're able to meet any need that comes about in the coming years in a more thoughtful way, utilizing the smarts that we've got in this country, across the world, to really deliver services to residents and citizens that need them. And so I'm excited about this moment, and I'm excited to share with you some of the lessons learned that we've seen from around the country, and also hear from some folks that have already been involved in some of those exciting projects, and then learn a little bit about what we're planning to do here at Octo as it pertains to digital services going forward. So we'll go to the next slide. Quick intro, I'm Lindsay Parker, Chief Technology Officer for the district government, and I'm joined today by Steve Miller, who's the Deputy Chief Technology Officer for Digital Services, and Mike Rupert, who leads our web services team right now, but also a key part of our digital services team. The three of us will kind of guide you through to the discussion today. And just to kind of re-emphasize, really what we're trying to do here is really build that comprehensive digital government experience that empowers residents, businesses, visitors to seamlessly navigate government resources and services and allow for easy, continuous feedback, really help define what those resources and services are in the first place. And so the reason that we wanted to come and talk to you about this today is because the folks on this call, you shouldn't think about the fact that you're listed on the stakeholder list as number 4, because in my heart, you're number 1. We can't do this without you. And we want to make sure that we're in constant communication as we sort of unleash the possible when it comes to digital services by engaging residents, our DC businesses, our DC agencies, but also all of you. This is something that there is no way that sort of one entity or one organization can do alone. It really requires sort of all of us working together and helping agencies, government employees, and residents understand the benefit of going through this somewhat difficult process to get to a great end goal. And so let's get going. Ooh, I'm so excited to introduce our first speaker, Matt Bailey. If you don't know him, you should. Now he gets a chance to work for PEN America, which focuses on, they're basically a digital freedom program focusing on issues ranging from mass surveillance, disinformation, digital inclusion that affect journalists, artists, activists around the world, which is super cool. But interestingly enough, he was a co-founder of Code for DC. So has been integral in doing what I just laid out for a number of years, and happened to also be a part of the Octo family. Was one of our first chief innovation officers, really kind of got the ball rolling, and with me thinking about what is possible in DC government, and most recently served on Biden's transition team, and really helping think through the policy that they need to kind of get, to give even USDS a little bit of a jump start into sort of what's to come. And so with that, Matt, thanks so much for joining us. It's so great to see you.
Holy moly. It's so great to see you, Lindsay, and I'm just really excited to see what the whole team kind of does in this space, expanding on everything you've already been doing. So I'm sort of at a loss for how to sum up all of digital services, my whole perspective on it really concisely, except that I think you already said the most important thing, which is like, it turns out this isn't a new thing anymore. I remember when all of a sudden there were all these like innovation officers and innovation offices, and I don't know, Boston Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics with its janky acronym happening, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what's all this stuff? And all of a sudden there's people using like weird Silicon Valley jargon inside the halls of government, and that seems maybe that's good. I don't know, we can't tell. So, one of the things that strikes me is that this new push for integrated digital services is really part of, like, I don't know, let's call it like the third wave of these programs, and I think that's the best one to be in, because it means that we've already tried a lot of really terrible ideas and figured out ways that they actually make things worse. Like, hey, maybe if you build digital services and your most needy residents don't have smartphones yet, that's not a great idea. We've tried a lot of that stuff, and it turns out, long and the short of it is that, this is sort of a technology discussion because there's a lot of data involved and everything is technology at this point, but that fundamentally, digital services are about people, and it's about setting up, not even necessarily faster or smarter in the smart cities sense of the word, feedback loops with residents, but just like more thoughtful and rigorous ones that happen at the point in the process where it actually matters and actually inflects not only what's built, but like what's procured, and how it improves over time. So, I won't go too deep into that because I think, Stephen and others and the people participating in the call have a lot to say about that, I'm sure. But obviously, DC is a special place as a city government, because we're particularly participatory. It's in our roots here in a lot of different ways. We're also a city of wonks and policy nerds who pay attention to all of these things. So we have a leg up in that way. But I think, like, one of the things that's distinguished DC in the civic tech space and digital services space is that we've had a lot more of a kind of like punk rock community organizer flavor than a lot of other places. Like, we've been in some ways for a long time the least Silicon Valley exponent of this conversation, and I think that's my number one hope for what you all do as you move forward. I think to the vendor community, I mean, you all have been a part of that as well from day one. I see Esri on the call here, who've been just like a huge infrastructure supporter and a supporter of a lot of the open data work that's been happening in the city. And, I think the question now with the stress test that we've been under with Trump, with the insurrection, with COVID, economic, I don't know, just general weirdness and V-shaped growth, is basically like, how do we get a lot faster about responding to these crises and these manifold crises as they're exacerbating inequalities in the city? So my challenge, I guess, to everybody, if I'm allowed to issue a challenge here, is, it's across like skill building and staffing within the civil service. It's across procurement, like helping the Office of Procurement learn what these words mean. Like when you're trying to procure for design or UX, like what does that even mean in an old school procurement system? And it's across like vendors who can support better integrations. Like all of that is great, but the real challenge is figuring out how to put the residents at the front of the process instead of writing them in as one of the requirements in the process itself. So, well, I can only see 4 people, but 2 of them are nodding, so that's a pretty good ratio. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. And I don't know, to the Octo team, I'm a resource. I'm always happy to help. And to everybody else, thanks for tuning in for this. I think it's really important stuff.
Thanks, Matt. I think it would be great if I put your challenge in the chat, but if people would like to ask any questions or chime in on their thoughts around that, definitely have a few minutes that we can open it up to everybody in the room.
Oh, wow, Nina, you're opening up the questions early. I say we push on. We let people think. I think what Matt did was just drop a lot of really thoughtful perspective. Obviously, it's something that he thought about while he was here, before he came here, and has thought about it a lot since. And so, Matt, we really appreciate all of your help along the way, right? I think you were probably the second person I called when I got the job. I called my mom first. And your perspective, you moved the needle when you got here. You pushed us faster than we were thinking about being pushed. But I learned a lot. And now we have this opportunity in front of us to really kind of make some of the things that you taught us about come alive. So really, really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
All right, next, Stephen Miller, you want to take it over?
I'd love to. So next, we're going to talk about we're going to engage with two folks here that have already begun some level of transformative changes within their agencies. In some cases, it's with John Thomas. He's our Chief Performance Officer for the District Department of Transportation. He's going to talk through how they've learned how to leverage data within their agency to help make decisions, and that data is coming from everywhere, from within systems to from people themselves reporting issues to the agency. And we're also going to talk with Patrick Ashley, the Senior Deputy Director for the Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Administration within the Department of Health. Patrick's going to talk to us about how they rapidly made transformative changes within the Department of Health, within DC Health, in the last year due to the pandemic response. I really look forward to both of these conversations, and hopefully it leads to some good insight in how we're moving forward with digital services. John, I believe you are kicking us off on your side, so we'll let you go first. Thank you, John.
John, can you hear us?
Are you muted, John?
It's not muted.
Maybe double muted on a headset? No. So maybe we'll go to Patrick first and we'll come back to John.
So we'll cut over Patrick Ashley, Senior Deputy Director from DC Health.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think I've been given 4 minutes, and I've got about 20 minutes of content, so I'll try to talk fast. There's so much to cover. As Stephen mentioned, my name is Patrick Ashley. I'm one of the senior deputy directors here at DC Health, and primarily during the COVID response, my job has been to cover all of the field operations of the department with regards to COVID. So that's everything: testing, vaccination, contact tracing, you name it. That's a bit of it falls into my portfolio. And as Lindsay mentioned in the chat, I am not a technologist. Sometimes I pretend to be, but that's not in my job description. My day-to-day job and sort of background and expertise is in emergency management. And before we really get started, I want to just a big shout out to Octo, who have become dear friends of mine, and Lindsay. So specifically, some of our first phone calls in the beginning was to Octo to say, oh crap, we need some help here. And that really takes me to my sort of first talking points is district government and DC Health and really the rest of the world found themselves in early March marching towards needing to work from home environment. And that wasn't just about work from home and sending people home with laptops. That was about quickly standing up technology to make sure that they could do that. Call centers that needed to be transitioned over. DC Health was not a teleworking agency at all. We had a 0% teleworking policy. And so we went to a 100% telework posture for about 75% of the agency practically overnight, over a weekend. And so in addition to dealing with the pandemic, we were also dealing with moving employees home where we were not a teleworking agency. And so it's no secret public health has had really years of underfunding. It's not been a priority of sort of the national security programs, and just in general, it's not a highly prioritized program. And we tend to have funding based on the disease du jour. And so we've had funding that comes for certain diseases, H1N1, Ebola, Zika, things like that. but there hasn't been a real steady flow of funding. And as a result, what we've seen is there hasn't been strategic priorities, strategic prioritization in IT infrastructure. And so DC was lucky. We were ahead of the curve in with regards to most public health jurisdictions, but we still had a lot of challenges in the early part. So as we were transitioning to a work from home environment, we were standing up a lot of new systems. We still had laboratories that were faxing in lab results, and lab results have sort of become the pinnacle of surveillance for us, so that we understand what's going on in the community. And we were getting hundreds and thousands of faxes, every day, with people trying to fax in their COVID test results, negative, positive, as the community was responding to this result. And really, like, the barrier to be able to process that data, input that data, and really use it as decision-making data was a struggle for us at the beginning. And so we spent a lot of time at the beginning part of the pandemics looking at how do we develop these electronic lab reporting systems. Fast forward a little bit, how do we develop immunization registries to make sure that we're knowing what's going on in the community? But really, at the early part, it was about, how do we do contact tracing? That was the buzzword back in the day. And we quickly hired, in addition to our more than 600 person workforce, we hired about 300 contact tracers who needed to have a way to process their data, to be able to have very standardized questions that they were asking the public, and all of that data flowing from hundreds of different places across the community. And so this was a real key priority for us in the early on, and really involved a lot of district government, our public health information management team, all trying to stand this up, while again reminding you that the rest of the world was, in our agency, was working from home, and so multiple different challenges there. What I really wanted to talk about today was really the client-facing side of it. And while we, the contact tracing is somewhat client-facing. People don't see our systems. People don't use our systems. That's all behind the scenes. Instead, we also found ourselves in a position where we needed to create public-facing systems. And public health has always prided ourselves on sort of being behind the scenes. We've been out of the direct service delivery business. Really, most people, the only time they interact with the health department is for dog licenses and their vital records if they need a birth or death certificate. Those are the primary functions, and everything else is behind the scenes with regards to cancer screening and all of the other good work that we do. It's really unbeknownst to the community. But instead, we found ourselves back in a direct service delivery function. Early on in March, we identified the need that testing was going to need to be a major component of this response. And just to remind folks, when you get tested, right, typically before the beginning of 2020, you would go and make an appointment with your doctor, and you would go and see your doctor. The doctor would write a script for whatever sort of test they wanted. Let's just call it a basic metabolic panel. You would take that script and you'd go to the lab. The lab would draw their blood. They take their time. I had lab work drawn this morning, actually. It took over an hour to get done. They take their time. They put a nice labeled sticker on the tube. They'd send it off to the lab. Those lab results would go back to your doctor, and the doctor would call you 3 to 5 days later and say, your sodium level is a little bit high, Patrick. You need to back off the salt, right? So we found ourselves that this was no longer the case. We needed to be able to deliver testing in what I would refer to as austere environments. We weren't in a lab. We weren't, pulling a ticket at Kaiser this morning. We were driving up in our cars, and we were needing to provide information about ourselves that typically we provide to doctors. And we want to have some modicum of privacy as well. And so we needed to develop a system that really flipped labs and how we got labs or got samples from people and delivered those results on its head. And so, and we didn't have a lot of time. Lindsay will remember, as our partner in this, this was really maybe a week, 5-day long initiative where we needed to go from finding a system that was able to take customer-facing data or customer data and actually connect that with a specimen, get that information to a lab, get the lab results to come back, and then deliver those lab results directly to the individual, really sort of flipping healthcare on its head. And so that was one of our sort of key experiences at the beginning part of the pandemic with public-facing technology. We didn't have the luxury of spending a lot of time to do this, and we're very proud of the system that we developed. And I want to mention that, I always have to brag on us that we have one of the most robust testing programs in the country. And that's been early on a commitment of ours and Mayor Bowser's commitment to make sure testing was accessible. Um, but it really required us to be creative thinkers in how we did that. And again, just appreciate the partnership with Octo to be able to quickly make that happen. I'll talk about how we've transformed testing in just a couple of minutes. I know my time's running short here, but I want to transition to sort of more of a happy topic, and that's vaccination. And so this is my public health plug. If you haven't been vaccinated, please go get vaccinated. It's easy, it's free, and if you're a DC resident, we'll even give you $51. So please get vaccinated. But again, we found ourselves at the Department of Health and DC government in a position where we needed to provide direct services. And like testing, there was really no commercial off-the-shelf product that we could just latch on to and say, we've got 700,000 residents and we need a way to schedule them an appointment and prioritize who gets to go first. And that's a topic that is controversial to start. It's not a fun topic to talk about prioritization, but we needed some way to sort of vet eligibility. And so as we looked at the technology, we really looked at the fact that, again, there's no off-the-shelf product. It wasn't really intended to be a scheduling platform. When we first started this process, we really needed to say, is Patrick a healthcare worker, or is Patrick a member of the general public, and to be able to assign some sort of prioritization. So we rolled out our first iteration of vaccinate.dc.gov in late December, early January, and it was great. The healthcare workers used it; they were happy with it. We were getting healthcare workers vaccinated, which was really our priority population to start. Supply was really scarce, and we had limited number of sites that individuals could get vaccinated at. And the good news is that production ramped up. But what we also found was that as production ramped up, we also expanded the population that was eligible, which means that we also had a number of individuals that were hitting our consumer-facing application to try and, get their vaccination, and everybody wanted to get their vaccination first. Rightfully so, they wanted to protect themselves from the pandemic. And so what we found, and I'll be candid, somewhat the hard way, is that we had millions of people that were hitting our site within minutes. This was not a technology that was really initially thought about to deal with millions of people. People were accessing the sites from multiple devices. They were having their parents, their sons, daughters, whoever, try from all across the country to get a vaccination appointment. And this was not a DC specific problem. This was a problem that was happening all over the country. And so we needed to quickly pivot our operations and be nimble, as we have been all throughout the pandemic, and to be able to stand up a pre-registration system. And that allowed us to reduce our instantaneous demand on the system and be able to still provide a fair way of getting vaccinated. And so, by time February, March came around, we had a much more robust system that allowed individuals to quickly get an appointment, or not as quickly as we would like because supply wasn't there, but at least to have a fair shot at getting a vaccination. So my sort of last piece here as I wrap up is what we've learned from this technology and what we're going to do with this technology. And so at the Department of Health, we've spent a lot of time, and the other agencies have as well, really thinking about what have we learned from the pandemic. And a lot of the lessons that we've learned have been technology related, both from our core infrastructure, the way that we leverage different products, and also, how that we interact with the public with regards to our technology. How do we take all those lessons and do something with it that's productive? And so we've come up with what we're calling our post-pandemic framework, which really helps to guide us into the future. It's posted on our website if you'd like to take a look at it. But we really started with testing, and we said, how do we make testing more accessible? And the first program that we started with was actually with sexually transmitted disease testing. And so now we actually have a program where you no longer have to go to your doctor's office. We will mail you a test kit directly to your house so that we make testing more accessible, and we're meeting the public where they're at so that we get individuals tested. We've also transformed our testing program that I talked about at the beginning. It used to be that you go online, you register, you have to present to a nurse at one of our testing sites, of which that we had a great deal of them in the community. But you had to present there, and you had to wait in a line, and then you would get your results 3 to 5 days later. What we did is we looked at the technology that we had, and we said, how do we make this more consumer friendly? And how do we make it so that people don't have to stay in line? And more importantly, for us at the Department of Health, how do we reduce the amount of labor that's out in the community so that we can take that labor and focus on other things like vaccination, which is what we want. And so in March of this year, we introduced the DC Test Yourself program, which is a network of 26, 27 different boxes throughout the community where you can go to almost every library and many rec centers throughout the community and be able to test yourself without waiting in line. So we took an existing program that we had already offered. We layered technology on top of that and a couple of sort of additional back-end processes. And then we also used additional technology to map these and provide real-time availability so that individuals no longer have to wait in line. We went from having about 12 different sites on any given day in the community to over doubling that so that it's more accessible, and we'll continue to expand that as well. And my last sort of example of sort of how we're taking the technology and moving it into the future is also what we learned from our vaccinate.dc.gov technology. So again, we know that sometimes it's hard to get healthcare appointments for certain procedures. We specifically heard that from parents in the community. So every fall, students go back to school, and they have to have required immunizations to make sure that they stay safe in school. But what we heard from the parents was that it was hard to find an appointment at their pediatrician. And so we took that technology that we use for COVID vaccinations, we made some slight modifications to it, and now we provide a service where individuals can go online and find the closest location to their house and register for their pediatric immunization. So they no longer have to wait 6 weeks to get into their doctor's office. They can now make an appointment with us, and with partnerships that we have in the community with community providers, we then connect them with the care that we want them to have. So we'll continue to transform our technology both on the consumer-facing side as well as our infrastructure side. But those are just a couple of examples of how we scaled our technology very rapidly during the pandemic to be able to respond. And with that, I'll turn it back to Stephen and Lindsay. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for the conversation. I'm going to now lead us into John Thomas, who I believe worked out his audio and video issues. John, can you hear us? Let's see if you can unmute there. John, can you hear us? Okay. All right, Nina, back to you.
All right, this is what you get for not coming to sound check.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
now we can, John. Yes.
Sorry, I apologize for not coming to sound check. I was in my one-on-one with my director and trying to wiggle out, and I wasn't wiggling fast enough. So I apologize. But I will try to make up for it in my presentation. How's that? So a little bit of 6 degrees separation. I think several of my team are helping disperse the $51 cards, and we're storing them over here at DDOT in our safe. So interesting that I'm following up here. So to pick up a little bit for where Matt was, and I'll get to the resident journey concept. So first, DDOT, we pave all the streets in the district, right? We do sidewalks, we do curb, we do gutter, We are the pothole people. We're everything you hate when your car is bouncing around and not having its smooth ride through the city. So getting engineers to communicate to residents and getting residents and ANC commissioners and everyone to talk the same language is difficult. So our engineers, slide 1 here, we're looking at how do we collect data to put things into something that we can have a pavement condition index so we can sort the streets by a standardized way, right? This collection of data we need from vendors and we need from ourselves. We go out with the machine, we do LiDAR, and we collect this information, we get data. We put in 311 data, we put in ADA data, and we come up with a new index that allows us, the roadway repair index, to put our street blocks into more standardized fashion so that we can kind of sort those. We can present a paving plan to the director based on data. Next slide. That information then is we bring into Tableau, and then that's our decision-making tool. And I would be remiss not to say that our performance team at DDOT is amazing and they can do anything. So we've created this tool which takes all the information that we just talked about in the previous slide, the PCI, the number of service requests that have come in regarding the street that have come from residents, right? The age of the service request, any ADA issues that might be hanging out there. And we put this in a way that we can sort and filter by ward and look at different combinations. We get a dollar amount. Luckily enough, the residents and the mayor are super kind to us and give us a lot of money to make the streets remain in a state of good repair. But we take that data, we look at these things, and we decide which street we're going to pave based on the inputs that we put in, right? And we do this presentation in front of the director, our community engagement team, and it gives us a data-based or a data decision model that we can back when we're talking to the mayor, we're talking to the ANC, or we're talking to demo. Next slide. And then for you GIS fans, we go one step further. We put this in an app which our staff goes out in the field and we field verify. So we want to make sure, right, the last thing we want to do, or last thing we want to do for our director or anyone in our leadership, we don't want them to go to an ANC meeting. We don't want them to be in front of the mayor or the deputy mayor and not be able to defend a decision, right? We're not going to get it right 100% of the time. We are going to pave streets that probably some people feel like we shouldn't, and we should pave something else. But the last step is to take that data collection, the model, and then start to deconflict and go on the street and verify that all this data we've collected actually is true. We deconflict with utilities, and then we come up with our final plan, which hopefully has fewer issues and fewer concerns, so that we're not out on the street any longer than we need to be. We want to get in there, get out, and move on so the traffic can flow and people can get back to their lives. But these tools and the options that are available through many of the vendors, and I think a lot of people on this call, they're essential for us to make these decisions. We can't make decisions on an Excel sheet. We need these visualization tools, and plus we need these tools to show the director, the mayor, the residents how we're getting there. So we have we strengthen our decision-making process as well. Next slide. And to the resident journey, all of that's done internally for our purposes and our selfish need to have a good plan and defend it and use the money wisely. But ultimately, in my case, my argument was always, what are we going to do for the resident? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road. And we take all that same data, we create our plan, we put it on our paving, our paved DC dashboard. This is the dashboard that we use every Friday morning, 9 o'clock. If you want to come to a great meeting, join us 9 o'clock on Fridays. We talk to the director, the chief of staff, all our asset management team that's doing the paving, and we go through this dashboard and we talk about where we are with each street, what's holding it up, what's not holding it up. Are we going to get to our planned miles? And this is the tool that also then is used. Our community engagement team sends this to ANC members. We send this to the community. This is what we share with the mayor. This is what we share with demo. So we're all looking at the same tool, same language, same information. And so we kind of have a common situational view they're all working from. And this is where we're getting, we wanted something that could be consumable by the resident. The resident is mostly interested in the street in front of their house, maybe in front of their business, or maybe on their way to work. So we needed to kind of make it a map-based, status-based, so they know when we start, when we finish, and when we're complete. And this is year 3 now of our dashboard, and it's super successful, I think, or we know, and the next slide kind of proves it, where the social media and other ways that people communicate are referencing our paid DC site and talking about, wait, I looked on the site and it says it's under construction, or I noticed on your site that my road's up for construction this year. We have A&C commissioners that can tell us, they're really happy because they know all the roads are going to be paved in their A&C. They can go into their A&C meetings armed with information. Our community engagement team is much more successful because this is the plan. We're not deviating from the plan. This is the plan that we've communicated to the mayor. We've communicated to our budget people already. And so we're now moving into just using the same tools, right? But now having that resident consumed side of it where it's easy for them to see and easy for us to maintain and update. And everything driven behind this is driven out of our ProTrack Plus system. So all of our paving plans are put in there. They're each block through our LRS is isolated and highlighted, and each block is given a status and a condition. But and so as we go through and they pave, they literally block by block change the condition, change the status from under construction to complete. And so that map is live every day that you come and look at it. You're going to see a different configuration of what's active on the street and what's not. And so this is kind of for us, this is the real journey for all of our things we do, because we affect so many people here at transportation. Right? Everything out there on the street is impacting everyone, visitors, the residents, right? There's no one that we don't bother. I think previously we had a chief of staff who's like, the minute you step on the sidewalk, you're stepping on DDOT property, right? So that whole public space, the sidewalk, the trees, the street lights are all part of us. And so we need to use these tools to communicate what we're doing so residents know. And I'll wrap it up there and happy to hop on the chat or whatever's needed.
Hi, thanks, John, and thank you, Patrick, as well. Lots of time spent together over the past year and a half on a lot of these things. And I think the key point to come out, especially from Patrick's standpoint, is we have to be intentional and have an intentional focus on the resident experience. I think every day when we would do those releases, we were up at 6 a.m., we'd think, what sort of weird browser issue is this person going to have? Or hope the connectivity in this target demographic works well. So I think having those resident business facing applications is really critical. And I think the pandemic forced us to make a lot of progress in those areas, but there's still a ton of work to be done. So with that, as was mentioned by Matt earlier, creating digital services isn't a new thing. People have been trying to do it. They're starting to do it. There's a lot of lessons learned. So as we begin this journey for the district, we're taking inspiration from both national, international, and local jurisdictions. Number one being the United States Digital Service, which I think most people are well aware of. But one implication that for us is we need to make sure we have the right talent in here. If we have 100 developers working on old school languages and we need to be more nimble and quick and come up with new interfaces, we have to have the correct talent for us to be successful at a large enterprise statewide scale. We also have looked to the California Office of Digital Innovation, which they really focus on the fact that people don't want to go into the DMV anymore. They don't want to go in and get their residential parking permit. They want to do it on their own time, whether that's at 4 a.m., whether that's at 11 o'clock at night while they're watching a show. They want to be able to interact with government when they have time, when it's convenient for them, not 9 to 5 when it's convenient for government. We also want to have really strong change management efforts are key to really sustaining that. You've seen a lot of surges in innovation and then it kind of gets forgotten because people didn't catch on to it. It gets put on the shelf again. So having very strong change management efforts is critical to our success. One of the most important things, and we really noticed this for Massachusetts Digital Service, was, and I think several people have touched on it, is streamlining the vendor proposal process. It can't, if we're moving so fast and trying to get stuff done,
but we're waiting sometimes months for something very simple to get procured, and some of that is a language barrier between technology and the vendors and then the actual procurement folks. So streamlining that process, reducing the time to get our hands on something or get our hands on talent is critical. The last, and you saw the video, which I think really inspires all of us at Octo, but is the United Kingdom Government Digital Strategy. As a parent, I think I filled out the same form 32 times already in the first 2 weeks. That should just be in a database. I recertify, it's done, and I move on. I could have saved about 5 hours. But those are really the four examples that we're really looking at and really researching, and going to bring that hopefully very quickly into our processes, which you'll hear a little bit more about. So with that, I'll turn it back to Lindsay. Nina?
Stephen?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Lindsay, Nina, Stephen. I'm actually Stephen. So, all right, we can go to the next slide, everyone. I'll try to get through this relatively quickly. I'll respect your time. So, this is the life cycle that we're about to go through. This is the cycle that the district, led by Octo, we're going to change how we approach transformation with this cycle. Right, we're going to look at new and legacy IT solutions. We're going to get into a transformation cycle at the core of every product and service that impacts our residents and businesses. We're going to look at how we can change the way that we plan, execute, and most importantly, engage with those products and services. We're going to ensure that this cycle is continuous and is without bias. We're going to make sure that teams and strategic partners, such as yourselves on this call, play their critical role in this transformation. We need to make sure that, we need to work with these service and product owners and leaders and get them to understand that they need to work with their users to set expectations. And then we need to exceed those expectations. We have momentum for these changes to start this cycle, in part because of our pandemic response. We showed that we can change the district government in a matter of days, in some cases in 24 hours, in some cases 72, in some cases a couple of weeks. But we've shown that change is actually possible. We've shown that change is actually quantifiable. We've also shown that there is more. We also know that there is more desire for change. So we're going to help the district product and service owners understand that their customers have valuable feedback about everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. The processes of how they do this, the people that do the work, the statutory framework that says why they have to do the work, the IT systems that support the processes, and most importantly, the outcome for the residents and businesses. Like, we just need to get their feedback on all of that. And having this process in place, starting this cycle today, is going to benefit everyone. And it's going to create a process that's repeatable across all IT solutions in the district. So how are we going to do it? How are we going to get to, how are we going to transform the way that we plan, for example? Well, so what we've done, we've created, we'll call it an Octo branded way of going about this. Ready, Set, Go. So Ready, Set, Go is the first transformative change that we're putting in place. And what Ready, Set, Go is it's a set of solution guidelines that we've distributed out to agencies when it comes to how they're gonna work out what IT solution is actually needed and what that IT solution is going to do. Ready, Set, Go isn't special. It's just it's a standardized approach. And the majority of you here probably do something similar when you're working on projects for yourselves, hopefully, where you work out how you're going to plan, execute, and operate an IT solution. You probably have something similar where you're calling, discovery phase, implementation phase, customer success programs, all of that. That is being codified for DC in Ready, Set, Go. It places an emphasis on key milestones in solution planning. It ensures that we're taking the right steps at the right time. It allows us to further understand not just the problems that we're facing today, but to work out, what problems can we face tomorrow? And when we think about potential solutions, how is that solution going to impact those issues? In a lot of ways, potential solutions might be staring us in the face, right? Or they might be miles away. This is also going to help us try to figure that out. It helps us take steps towards, and this is a Lindsay word I'm about to use, it helps us take steps towards the Amazonization, hopefully I said that right, of government technology. Amazonization, I've got it phonetically spelled out for me here. We can use these guidelines, this Ready, Set, Go, to make sure that we're creating efficient and effective solutions that increase government interoperability, increase accessibility, create reliable and secure solutions, and that we're going to exceed expectations. That's what Ready, Set, Go is about. It's not about creating a solution overnight. It's not about finding problems in the government necessarily. It's not about finding a solution before we identify a problem. What this is about doing something right the first time. And if we didn't get it right, it's a framework that helps us course correct when it's needed. Next, we're going to talk about how we execute. So we have another tool that we put in place, and this is called STAR. So STAR, which is Strategic Teaming and Resourcing, is our new contingent workforce management solution. It's like our previous workforce management solutions on steroids. We believe this is going to change how the district approaches teaming with vendors on projects and product work. It still provides standard staff augmentation, and we don't believe that that's going away anytime soon. But this also is going to provide specialist teams through STARS that will allow us to break our product plans down into logical work streams and deliverables. So instead of having one giant procurement, we are streamlining that vendor proposal process by having this easy, quick, task order based vehicle available that's got fixed prices and a 2 to 4 week time frame for award. This is the future of government procurement, I feel. It's going to be easy to get a task order around here, to get a vetted and experienced team available for a variety of workloads on a project. Everything you saw under Ready, Set, Go, basically. You want someone to go through an engagement with stakeholders. You can get a resource on this, or you can get a team that will do this through STAR. We're also going to be looking to create we want to make sure that we're bringing the right teams in at the right time to handle discovery, documentation, implementation, and enhancements. And as you mix together Ready, Set, Go, and STAR, that's really what we're getting at, right? So it all comes together to give us the tools that we have to transform IT. So we start the ability to have engagement with stakeholders, with residents and businesses, that's going to help us create this transformative and substantial change in IT. Ready, Set, Go, and STAR is basically our customer success program. It's our implementation team. It's our planning and design team. It's our architects. It is everything we're going to need, because we don't necessarily have the skill sets today. We don't necessarily have the capacity today to do it. So the strategic teaming is going to give us the people we need to create everything from training and perform development. They'll help us work on communication strategies. They're going to help us document and assess what we did, right? So if we came out with a solution tomorrow, we're coming out with a solution for something tomorrow, we're not done with it. We still need to go back in and make sure that we're assessing that solution actually works for the people that we delivered it to, that it works for their customers, for those residents and businesses that are using those services. So with Ready, Set, Go and with STAR, we're basically empowering our workforce, our users, and our product owners, and in the end, the residents and the businesses of the district, to look at measurable successes and failures so that we can learn lessons about what we need to create the next, hopefully, success. We're creating a cycle of improvement, and it's going to change the way that we work. But more importantly, these tools are going to serve everyone in the district. So it's really, really important. So where are we with this? Well, right now, we're in kind of step one, right? We're waiting in the baby pool. We've established the digital services team. We have a budget We've worked through our guidelines with Ready, Set, Go. We've got STAR set up in place, and we have our marquee project with the Business Center, which Mayor Bowser was kind enough to give us about $5 million to move forward with that. So we have the start of a project, and we're going to be dipping our toes in that baby pool and building out a team. We'll be building out the leadership on this team, identifying who will come in as our strategic partners. We're going to work our way and dip our way into that second pool where we're going to pilot our first set of engagements. Again, Business Center is guaranteed to be one of those engagements, but I'm sure, you know, we'll be working with folks at agencies like the Department of Transportation or the Department of Health to pilot similar initiatives within their agencies, following the principles of Ready, Set, Go and utilizing team members from STAR. And then finally, hopefully within the end of this year, the end of the next fiscal year, FY22, you know, we'll be stepping our toes into that third pool, and we're going to be scaling this across the rest of the district government. Hopefully it becomes self-sustaining at that point. I know a key part of that is that we're utilizing Ready, Set, Go as part of our formulation for project budgets when it comes to IT, and it's going to ensure that we're engaging with our stakeholders, engaging with the residents and the businesses to make sure that we are actually planning out an improvement that they want to see, putting in place a solution that actually solves the problems of the district. So that's what I have to say about our roadmap, and hopefully, you know, we make our way to 3 within a year or 2. We have 3 points of discussion. They're up on the screen. I don't know if I have to read them or not, but
We
does
also
everyone
have a
think
couple
we're
of
on the right track?
comments in the chat section. I know Taysin is digitally responding. But Eric Weimer wants to know how CBE has become a strategic partner on the pilot.
So it is CBEs will be allowed to, CBEs can enroll with the prime vendor with the STAR contract, and we'll have information available on that shortly. Yeah.
Great. So definitely want to, with our last few minutes, open it up if anybody does want to chat, but if not, we do have an event in October because it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You can plan on the next Unleash the Possible event happening then. And then I will put a couple of resources in the chat based off of what we kind of talked about today. In case you missed that amazing intro video that Lindsay found from UK government, I'm going to put that in the chat. And you can always look at what we've done in the past and what we're going to do in the future on our Unleash the Possible event page.
So I know we're out of time, but let's put the questions back up and see if anybody wants to sort of comment. If you've got time, I recognize that people have meetings to get to, but I think this is a important enough conversation that we definitely really want to hear from you.
Well, this is Herschel. You know, I was going to have a comment. So are we on the right track? Yes, this is, you know, USDS has been doing this for a while. I'm glad to see it. And it's hard to kind of give this as a little bit of a criticism, given that you guys have gone above and beyond with the pandemic. But as a CBE, I would have liked to have had a little more discussion about the approach, because I don't really know. You know, I know STAR. I know this is going on. You know, there's been I would have liked to see more communication, but it's understandable given the pandemic. I know things were going on. On the challenge, here's the thing that I see a lot more on the federal side and the such is, and in conversations in our events before the pandemic, is I think DC is trying to, I hear DC saying we're going to do this kind of small unit of work. You know, we want to come in and do something for 2 or 3 months, and we want that team to be there. And I see some of the USDS, they try to do that. GSA is doing that, and also 18F with some of the work they do. It's a different ball game when you're trying to do 2 and 3 month projects than it is if you're doing a multi-year government contract. Your rates are a lot different. That's more like a commercial contract. So a challenge I've seen is government will put out a 2 or 3 month contract to small businesses or CBEs, and then a lot of them won't respond, or a lot of them will respond with rates that make the government go, "Wow, why are these rates so high?" From a business perspective, the reason those rates are so high is we have to pay that person for the other 3 months that they're sitting on the bench. So I've seen it as a challenge or lessons learned kind of around that. And what I've seen as more of a solution is you have a statement of work that defines a team to respond in an agile way. From a business perspective, my team is paid for a year. From your government perspective, you can have them work on different projects. It doesn't have to be codified or prescriptive in the statement of work. Those are my comments.
Steve, anything to say back on that? Because I think we've thought a little bit about that. No, Steve's like, no, nothing to say right now. Okay.
I mean, it's Herschel. I think we can have a conversation about that, Herschel, for sure. I love your feedback for sure. Thank you, Herschel.
Anyone else? I'm gonna just allow. I mean, I recognize we're out of time, but you're welcome to come off mute.
Hi, this is Melissa Daly.
And you can tell us who you're affiliated with so others can learn, and then they can chat with you and connect with you offline. So we're networking and sharing.
Sure. I'm affiliated with Work Intelligence. And so from this, I think this is a really great conversation. I appreciate everyone and all the effort they put into this. And I think this will really be helpful for DC going forward. One of the thoughts that I had in terms of implementing systems is having a working group. So I know that there was a very strong push for concentrating on the residents. And I think that even if the residents can, provide some type of like citizenship working group that can just come to certain meetings and provide their feedback, and that will be a really good way to get the user experience in a rapid way. So that's the only thing that I wanted to add value to, and having a diverse group of the residents so that we can understand, what are some of the technology challenges that they're having with some of the technology that we're putting out there.
No, I thank you for that, Melissa. That's spot on. I think, and actually Matt talked about it a little bit earlier too, about the fact that, I think in the past, big digital services efforts were sometimes pushed forth without thinking about digital inclusion. So the great thing is that we're getting to do both right now. Right? There's obviously a lot of federal money coming down the pipe to think about and really focus on and bridge the divide when it comes to digital inclusion. But at the same time now, we can make sure that what we're also doing is as we're improving, as we're sort of breaking down the barriers to digital inclusion, we can also test to see if because of those sort of digital literacy programs, we're seeing a greater uptick in government programs, right, through these digital service transformations. That is like, right, I'll leave government then, right? That to me is like, if we can get that right, let's go. And that's the most exciting thing that kind of keeps me coming back every day. If we can move the needle on that together, we're ahead of the game, but we're also like serving residents in the way that they deserve to be served. So thanks for that. Anyone else? And again, you're welcome to state your name, the organization. It's not sort of a marketing moment, but what I do want to make sure of is that you're able to follow up with one another afterwards. End of the day, it's a Thursday, I get it, but I hope you're as excited about this as I am. I think there's a lot of opportunities. What I want to make sure of is that we're talking about this. I'm going to need everybody's help on the call to make sure that we're communicating with agencies, agency directors, other program managers across the government, and helping them understand the direction that we're taking, right? We're talking to you, we'll talk to the CIOs, we'll talk to the agency directors, but making sure that this is understood throughout is a challenge that there's no one person or one agency that can really move the needle on that. I need everybody thinking that way. And to Mike Rupert's point earlier today, one of the things that I challenge anyone to think about, right? We've got 90 some odd agencies. Each of those agencies, let's say on average, have 5 different applications, all providing some type of different service to a resident or to a community. How do we, instead of incentivizing each of those agencies to modernize their own system, how do we incentivize agencies to come together and really, again, think about that resident perspective, right? So that's what we're going to be doing next year with, and thinking through and working with a number of different agencies, thinking through how businesses have to interact with like 14 different agencies in DC government. How do we come up with a business portal that's delivering services where you are, as opposed to where we are? Same thing, to Rupert's point about parents or families. Why are we continuing to build and modernize these systems in isolation, as opposed to coming together and saying, right? All families need to know about summer camps, need to know about schools, need to know about number of other resources that we know about throughout DC government. How do we make sure that that is available in one place, right? Where we're pushing notifications to folks when they indicate that they want to learn more about it, but we're also reminding them of things that are upcoming and where to go. And so those are the kind of conversations that I can use everybody's help on, and making sure that we're talking to agencies, bringing people together. So you see some of this from your perspective on the outside, chasing us around. How do we bring folks together to think about coming up with solutions and proposals going forward that really reform the way that we're providing these services? That's what keeps me going. It's what I think we have this fascinating moment in time to really change the way that we deliver services. We've got a mayor that's there, right? She wants to make sure that we're moving and modernizing government to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. And so let's not lose this moment, and we need everybody along for the ride. So really, really appreciate it. I recognize that we're 9 minutes over, but look forward to continued conversations. And to Nina's point, there's a upcoming session. Remind us again? Thursday, October 21st. We're going to be talking about cyber, obviously super relevant to today's discussion, and also some of the data security comments that were made earlier in the conversation. So thanks, everybody, and talk to you soon.